Okay, welcome. My name is Ed Kiryczun. I'm the County Veteran Service Officer with the County of San Mateo. And today we have Aaron Munz from the Mesothelioma Center of Asbestos. He is here to discuss the services that they provide and the assistance they can provide veterans who may have been exposed to asbestos as a part of their service. So welcome, Aaron. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let me go ahead and start with what is the Mesothelioma Center at asbestos.com, and how do you help veterans?
So the Mesothelioma Center at asbestos.com is a free help center that provides information about all aspects of asbestos diseases. I'm the Veterans Director. I'm an Army veteran myself. I've been here for 10 years. And over the past 10 years, we've assisted over 2,000 veterans understand how they were exposed to asbestos, what the health risks are, how to get the right medical diagnosis if they were exposed and are experiencing a health condition as a result, and then helping them understand what information is required to support a disability claim with the VA so they can get the benefits and services that they've earned through their service. We also can help veterans connect with specialty medical care for if they've been diagnosed with mesothelioma cancer, a very rare and aggressive cancer caused by asbestos, as well as civilian resources that are available in addition to the VA.
So we hear about asbestos all the time, but why is asbestos dangerous?
Well, asbestos is a naturally occurring fiber. It is used in a wide variety of applications because it is fire resistant, non-corrosive, extremely light, and cheap. So it was used in everything that the military needed to be fireproof, beginning in the 1940s through the early 1980s. So it was used in shipbuilding, fire protective, personal protective equipment, brake pads, construction equipment, cement. It was used everywhere. It is not dangerous when it is in a solid form, but when it starts to break apart due to friction, wear, or demolition, it releases fibers into the air. And those fibers can enter the body two ways, through the airways and it gets into the lungs, or through the digestive and urinary tract. And those fibers, once they're inhaled or ingested, are like little fish hooks and they embed in the tissue of the body. And over the course of decades, they can form scar tissue and damage the cells, which can lead to reduced lung capacity, inflammation, and in some cases, that can cause cancer. So asbestos is dangerous when you are exposed to the fibers that enter your body.
Well, it sounds like there was a potential for a lot of people to be exposed to asbestos. Which veterans were exposed to asbestos during their service and are probably at the highest risk?
So the veterans at the highest risk are those who work directly with asbestos materials and whose job it was to repair or replace those components. The highest exposures are Navy and Coast Guard veterans who worked in the engineering spaces to repair and replace asbestos lagging, pipe packing, bulkhead insulation, gaskets. If your job was to repair those asbestos materials and you had to mix the loose asbestos by hand that created a cloud of dust, or rip off the asbestos lagging from the steam pipes, which caused the entire compartment to be filled with dust, you have the highest exposure. So boiler technicians, hull technicians, pipe fitters, machinist mates, the guys who worked in the engineering spaces. In other branches, it's mechanics who worked on brake and clutch faces that were made of asbestos, mechanics who worked on armored vehicles or aircraft, rotary wing or fixed wing, where there was asbestos around the engines for insulation, wiring harnesses contained asbestos. So basically, if your job was to fix something, you had more exposure. The good news is that about 80% of veterans who had a lot of exposure never have a negative health effect as a result. but there is no safe level of exposure to asbestos. So if you've had exposure, we recommend talking to your doctor and having some screening done to either determine if there's something there or if it hasn't had an effect on you at all.
So we understand asbestos has a pretty lengthy latency period. So what should a veteran who worked with asbestos materials decades ago during their service do today to learn more about their health and the possible impact of the exposures they might have had?
So asbestos has an average latency period of 25 to 50 years, which means that if you're exposed to asbestos today, you're not going to have immediate negative health effects. It typically takes 25 or more years from when you were exposed from your service to when you may have symptoms. Every veteran that I talk to who was exposed 20, 30, 40 years ago, who hasn't had a health screening with their doctor, that's the first recommendation. It's important for a veteran to talk with their primary care physician about their service, about their potential exposure to asbestos, and ask for some screening to be done. What we want a veteran to have done is a CAT scan of their chest and lungs. Asbestos primarily causes lung disease. Non-cancerous lung disease is the most common condition which can affect your overall lung capacity. We also want them to have a pulmonary function test which can measure their lung capacity. And ideally ask for a referral to a pulmonary specialist, a lung doctor, if they determine or find anything on those scans for a treatment plan to help improve their breathing, as well as a monitoring plan to monitor their health as they age. If you don't have any symptoms today, we still recommend that CT scan if you haven't had one, because it can act as a baseline. So if something changes in 4, 5, 10 years, they have a point of comparison to help make a diagnosis.
So is this something that I can approach my primary care physician with, or do I need to go to a specialist?
So the primary care doctor can order the CT scan and can order the pulmonary function test for you. A lot of primary care doctors don't have the expertise or experience to identify an occupational lung disease, and asbestos falls into that category. So ideally, you want to talk to the specialist about what they see on your scan and what the treatment options are. But I've spoken to a lot of veterans who are having shortness of breath or some breathing problems. Their primary care doctor, if they have any history of smoking, may diagnose them with COPD, give them a couple of inhalers, and they come back in a year. If they don't dig deeper and advocate for themselves and ask for that CT scan, they may not get an accurate diagnosis.
That's tremendously important because veterans know where they served and what they did. The doctors typically don't. So advocating for yourself sounds like it's a critical part of this process. Talk to me a little bit about what diseases and cancers are caused by asbestos exposure.
So I mentioned that the most common are lung diseases. When those asbestos fibers get into your lungs, they're like little fish hooks. They embed into the lung tissue. Over time, your body forms scar tissue around them, harder skin, kind of like if you get a splinter in your finger and don't take it out, you get that harder skin around it, that harder tissue. The same thing happens in your lungs. If enough of this occurs, it actually reduces your overall lung capacity and you can't get as much oxygen into your lungs. So that's a condition called interstitial pulmonary fibrosis. And when interstitial pulmonary fibrosis is caused by asbestos, it can be re-diagnosed or renamed as asbestosis. That is a progressive lung disease caused by asbestos. It can also cause scarring in the outer lining of the lung, the pleural lining, which can cause what they call a restrictive lung disease. If there's enough of that scar tissue, it can prevent the lungs from fully expanding because it's like a balloon with a thicker wall it's harder to open. It can also cause cancers. Those cells can cause mutations, and it can cause lung cancer, cancers of the esophagus, the larynx and the pharynx, and the digestive tract and urinary tract. And for female veterans, it can also cause ovarian cancer. So once those fibers are in the body, they can migrate a variety of different ways, including the bloodstream. And when they embed in tissue, they cause inflammation. So it's important, if you're having any conditions that could be connected with asbestos, to talk to your doctor and say, I was exposed to asbestos. Is there any evidence that my condition may be linked to asbestos?
So are there resources available to help with that conversation?
So we have information that we can send to a veteran. We can mail some information to their home. Our website, asbestos.com, also has information about all of these diseases. I'm also available to talk with veterans or email veterans information one-on-one to discuss particular aspects of their exposure to asbestos. The most important part is getting that accurate diagnosis, talking with your doctor so that they understand how you were exposed to asbestos, so we can put together the other resources for VA disability or civilian resources that are available.
So let's talk about VA disability, because that's one of the things that I work on here as a VSO. So if a veteran has been exposed to asbestos and has developed the disease, so what evidence is needed to help file a successful VA disability or DIC claim?
So the VA has a list of about 15 different conditions that can be caused by asbestos, but there's nothing presumptive for asbestos exposure like there is for other things like Agent Orange or the burn pits, meaning that you need to show that you have that actual diagnosis, and there has to be medical evidence linking that diagnosis to asbestos. Now, many veterans are already familiar with the term nexus statement. Nexus is that link between their diagnosis and what may have caused it. And their doctor, that specialist, in this case, not their primary care doctor, is the one that needs to make that connection. And we have examples of nexus letters with the wording that the VA is looking for, with the medical connections between asbestos and their particular diagnosis that they can share so their doctor understands what type of information the VA is looking for. The VA doesn't need your doctor to be 100% certain. They don't need to say that asbestos is the only cause of your condition. You know, the most common cancer caused by asbestos is lung cancer. But if you look at all of the lung cancer diagnoses in the United States, about 3% of them are linked to asbestos. There's a lot more common causes. So you may have a history of smoking, but if you also have exposure to asbestos, they both are probably risk factors for you. And if your doctor will state that the asbestos is a risk factor, you can still get your disability claim approved by the VA, even if you have other risk factors that may be involved. Once they have that, then the last piece of evidence is they need their information about how and when they were specifically exposed to asbestos during their service. Don't assume that the VA knows how you were exposed because you served on a ship or you worked on this particular type of equipment based on your DD-214 or your personnel file. You want to be able to state very clearly how, when, and where you were exposed to asbestos. And that's something that myself and my team can assist you with to help you understand how you were exposed to asbestos and put it in the right format so the VA will understand it and will acknowledge that exposure.
We talk to veterans about developing the nexus letter, especially when they're working with a non-VA doctor. We do say that it's important to be informed when you go and have that conversation with your doctor, and when you're helping to develop the potential exposure and the evidence necessary to support it. Your organization has worked with hundreds and hundreds of veterans in these situations. Is your organization able to assist these veterans in one, developing that understanding, and two, even providing examples or evidence as a part of that conversation?
Yes. So we have a library of information that we can share. I have information, research studies that link every single one of the VA's acknowledged conditions to asbestos. So that's something that I can send to the veteran that they can share with their doctor. We have examples of those nexus letters that show how asbestos is connected to that particular diagnosis and the wording that the VA is looking for that they can share with their doctor. We also have, as I mentioned, I've written hundreds of these asbestos exposure summaries, every branch of service, lots of different job ratings and MOSs that we can share and help a veteran quantify how much exposure they may have had and how specifically they came in contact with individual equipment that they may have worked with. And that's really the key. It's very challenging to tell the VA I was exposed to asbestos, I was in an old barracks during basic training, and then I lived in the billets. unless you state how and when you were exposed to asbestos, the VA will counter and say, well, the home you grew up in and the school you went to also contained asbestos. So if you can say, I went to basic training in these old barracks, and then I worked and was trained as a wheeled vehicle mechanic where I worked with asbestos brand brake pads and clutch faces. While I was doing the cleaning, I sprayed it off with an air hose that brought dust into my face. I wasn't provided with any breathing protection or informed about the dangers of asbestos. If we can provide more information, the veteran has a much better chance of the VA acknowledging that exposure and granting them service connection.
So how does a veteran get access to this information and assistance through the organization?
So there's several different ways that they can contact us. They can go on our website on asbestos.com and fill out a request for veterans assistance. It will come to me. We have thousands of requests every year. I get to talk to every veteran who contacts us. They can also contact me directly. They can email me at aaron@asbestos.com or call us. We're available every week. We're a free help center. So if there's any information that we can provide to a veteran or a veteran service officer, please let us know how we can help.
Well, I can say as a veteran service officer, service-connected disability can be very challenging, especially when you're talking about something that may have occurred decades ago. So I say personally, having an organization like yours available to assist veterans and ourselves is immeasurably helpful. So I want to take a moment to thank you very much, Aaron, for the services that you guys provide. I will include the contact information for your organization and your contact information at the end of this video. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I just wanted to say to all the veterans, thank you for your service. We know that if you've been exposed to asbestos and you're doing research online, it may be scary. You may be worried about your future, your family's financial well-being. There are resources available. Having the right information is the key to being able to access those resources. And please let us know if we can help answer those questions or connect you with any of those resources.
Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.